Betsey Johnson as a fashion inspiration point was such a brilliant idea for Drag Race, and it makes me excited for the possibility of more fashion designers coming onto the show in the future. Like, imagine Zach Posen, imagine Mondo Guerrera, imagine Christopher Palu, Marc Jacobs coming back would be fierce, and using her as a point of inspiration for a look, I think was a really brilliant idea. I think what my problem was the execution, and I didn't think that these looks were that accessible to drag. Even though, in an odd way, the categories that they gave them were the most accessible for what half this cast does. Punk grunge flapper is totally on the alley of queens like Susie and Lydia. Betsey's prom is so accessible to queens like Lexi, Jules, Corey King. And the prenup bridal look, I don't know if that was accessible to anybody here, but the execution is where I think this episode fell flat. So let's get into it. Hi, hello everyone, my name is Jer. Welcome into my channel. We are talking about RuPaul's Drag Race Season 17, Episode 9, Heavens to Betsey. This was such a cute name, can I just say? I want to start by saying thank you so much to all of you who have been following and subscribing here on YouTube. I really freaking appreciate it because we just hit level 1 of the YouTube partner program, and I'm so freaking excited and ecstatic about that. So if you haven't already, if you're a return viewer, please hit that subscribe button. I think we're something like 400 away from the next level. I am opening up a membership opportunity that I'm calling Extravaganza Extra, where you'll get opportunities to watch my scheduled content maybe a day or two before it's supposed to air. I'm gonna have a couple exclusive member polls so that for videos that I'm doing down the road, I'll let members decide what kind of content I'll be creating. I'm working on some badges for those as well so that when you post in chat, you'll have a fun little badge next to your name. So if you are interested in that, and if you are interested in supporting the channel in that way, there should be some option somewhere. This is all brand new to me. On my main channel, I never utilized this option. So if you are interested, that's there. I've been asked about Patreon, and that's not really something that's in my sightlines right now. Another thing I want to incorporate in the membership is future posts and content updates, things that I've got scheduled out, so you'll kind of have an idea of what's coming. So if you kind of want to get into the BTS, so to speak, of what's coming down the road, that is another opportunity that you'll have as a extra member. So check that out if you're interested. Now let's get into the episode. Corey is feeling the pressure that she really wants to make it to the end, but doesn't really seem confident in that. The edit was heavy this week. It was focused almost entirely on Corey. And Sam got a massive edit narrating half of the episode, I felt like. Which is odd because Sam didn't end up with a win. Sam ended up in a safe place. So I was confused why Sam got such a storyline, and I wonder what this is setting up later. Last week, I talked specifically about how the Corey and Lydia romance, showmance storyline was going to end up affecting them negatively, that they were going to use each other to snipe one of them out in the same way that they've used Brangie, in the same way that they used Tace and Ahura, in the same way they've used 100 friends across the Drag Race franchise to snipe out the other one because it makes good TV. I thought that this was going to be like a Jules out. They don't seem to be featuring her very much or liking what she does. So I'm actually so happy that she got the win because I couldn't tell where they felt about her. And overall, the room is feeling the pressure about the way that the wins are divvied out. My favorite seasons are ones like season 5 of Drag Race, where by the time that we got to this point in the competition, everybody had a win. Season 5 is a really great one that I use as a rubric to reference quite often because it is the season quite legitimately with everything in it. And you know, even players like Ivy Winters, who wasn't a long game character, had a win by about the midpoint of the competition. And right now, the wins are stacked on one side of the room. So justifiably, all of them are feeling a little bit squished right now by the way that the competition is moving. Half of them don't have wins, and I'm sure that half of them are thinking, if I don't get one this week or next week, it's basically over for me. And while I understand that mentality, I also feel like there have been plenty of queens who have gotten to the finale with no wins or maybe only one. So I don't think they're that important. I mean, look at Scarlett Bobo of Canada's Drag Race, who did well and consistent all season and just never landed in the bottom because she was doing good. Made it to the finale finale with only one win. She didn't win the whole thing, but it's happened before. Evie Oddly only had one win and won the whole thing. You just have to make an impression on Rue and make her like you. This week's mini is a reading challenge, and I gotta say, this is the funniest reading challenge in actual years. The problem with the reading challenge, you wanna talk about reading. Reading is when you tell someone a thing they already know about themselves, but you do it in a way that is cutting and is sharp. It allows them to build up a defense towards that type of commentary. And it's especially important on Drag Race because if you tell someone, if I ever get a brain transplant, I'm gonna pick Crystal Versace's because it's never been used. Crystal then can build up some immunity towards being told that she's stupid so that when she goes off the show, and in the same way if you tell somebody about their crusty wig line, they're able to be more resistant towards online hate, especially in the Drag Race sphere. And over the years, a lot of the queens have been quite resistant towards leaning in towards that. They're all trying to be Mickey Mouse Club, harmonious with each other, and so they don't share the cutting thing. They don't say the funny read because they don't want to get backlash from the fans. And this year, these girls didn't hold back, and I was so happy about it. Jules and Sam were actually the funniest ones in the room for me, so I was a little surprised that Susie won. Ariete was really the only bum part of the entire group. Everyone else was consistently funny. And if I'm being honest, Susie's jokes made me cringe just a little bit. I'm trying not to be affected too much by what the internet is saying because the internet is telling me that she's being a certain way. I want to be able to make up that decision in my own head. And I feel uncomfortable, which is telling me that maybe there's something there. In my opinion, I think that this was a way to secure Susie's safety this week. There's another very specific example that is rolling through my brain right now, and I cannot recall where it was in the pantheon of Drag Race things that I've watched. But I am positively certain that there have been times that someone won a mini challenge that was like, huh, that's weird that you won that. I don't think that was yours to win. But the main challenge was something that that girl struggled hard with, that they just were not good at. And so them getting an advantage, a choice in what they were gonna do, solidified a little more of their safety. I feel like this just happened. Like in Canada's Drag Race season 5. In any case, I felt like this was a way to make sure that Susie was secured in a spot so that if she flubbed, it would be completely on her. There would be no excuse for why she did bad because she got to choose it. And this is something that has happened in many other seasons, and in like 25 minutes, I'm gonna flip out and be like, oh my god, it was this queen. And Rue announces that the main challenge is going to be a Betsey Johnson collection inspired drag look. That puts us at design look number 3 this season, which is kind of insane. We don't see this many design challenges in a season, but I'm so happy about it because I would rather see them create something than to put up with BS acting challenges that are badly written, bad improv, terrible girl group themes, bossy Rossi. You know, I would much rather see designing because then we get to see their drag represented in the most raw, unfiltered format, and there's something I think very special about seeing that. But my problem with this week is that these categories were so weird. In my opinion, when I think about Betsey Johnson, I think crisp, clean bodices, just super fitted and then an exaggerated waist. Flouncy, extreme. Think flirty and fun. I think whimsical. I think borderline tacky. And maybe even further than borderline tacky. Her fashion is fun and bright and exciting. She doesn't take herself too seriously, and that's why Betsey has made a mark in the fashion world. By ending her runways doing splits, she's showing that she's not just she's doing something that is more tailored towards the whimsy of creating things, because fashion is supposed to be whimsical. And so focusing it into these 3 specific categories, punk grunge flappers, Betsey's prom, and prenup, these collections are not one for one in judging. Flapper silhouettes are going to be very different than bridal silhouettes, and those are going to be very different to prom silhouettes. And I think this is kind of different than things they've done before. The Fashion House Challenge they did in what, season 14? 15, where they had to do like Ross and Carson and Michelle houses and just had fabric to make something. Because they get to create their own collection and their own design. So it's really about who was more cohesive as a group and who created the best look out of those houses. This one is meant to be inspired by a vibe, but they also kept throwing out words like collaboration. So that made me think, how is this being judged? When it gets to the runway and they're writing on their scorecards who's where, are you judging based off of how closely you were to the Betsey Johnson collection? Because they made it seem like this was supposed to be plucked right out of it with their unique flavor sprinkled on top. When you look at a Betsey Johnson look, you want to take Arietti's flavor of drag, stamp it on there, and present it to the camera. When I think collaboration, the world that I come from currently in gaming is all about looking at something and saying, oh, that's Junji Ito on Dead by Daylight. So you see the direct inspiration right then and there. It's not meant to necessarily be a big departure from that. So I just wondered, on a technical level, how is this being judged? Are they looking at these like collection pieces or like their unique drag inspired by? All that aside, I do think a lot of the judging was correct. And I do think that this was less of a production episode and more just a lucky happenstance that things worked out the way they did. Sam, through this whole challenge, is getting an interesting frontrunner edit in the same way that Trinity did in All Stars 7, being shown helping Jinx / Lexi, respectively, in helping create their garment and presenting something that looked nice on the runway. That kind of solidifies my feeling from last week that Sam is not gonna win the whole thing, but is going to certainly get to the very end. Plus, she's just so fun to watch in confessionals. I get why the judges like her. She's silly, she's goofy, she's very polished and poised at the same time. She 100% studied at the Trinity the Tuck School for Drag Race, and I love to see it. If you're gonna send your kid to Drag Race, you better prep them, because I don't think some of these other girls prepared their daughters to go on Drag Race properly. I hate to talk about her in a negative light, but I did not like Rue's look this week. It was tacky. This could have been super fun and flouncy in these colors, but it just looked wrong. And the makeup was sort of frightening in this dark pink. And the wig, we've seen this wig like 7 times this season. It's the same wig. It is the same wig. So let's get into these looks and let me share what my personal favorites were in each one of these categories. And as I say every week, these are my personal opinions. Someone last week typed up a comment and then immediately deleted it, but it went to my email, so I saw it. And it was something like, you putting so-and-so in the last place proves you don't know what you're talking about. And then immediately deleted it. I provide such in-depth detail on why I felt a certain way. So if you have an opinion that I'm incorrect, that's totally fine, but don't assume that I don't know what I'm talking about, because I go so into why things were ranked the way they were. Crazy, fatherless behavior. I'm gonna go by collection here, and who showed up on the runway first versus who showed up last. And a big parameter for my judging this week is how closely to Betsey is this look? How closely to the drag performer is this look? It's a collaboration, so I want it to look as if it came out of Betsey's brain and was filtered through this drag queen. So our first category is punk grunge flappers, which is such an interesting category because you've got two really juxtaposing concepts here. Flapper, which is about sleekness and clean silhouettes and fun and whimsy, and punk grunge, which is loud and bold. It's in your face. It isn't necessarily focused on clean lines. And that's a lot of what the flapper silhouette is about. But flapper isn't necessarily what we think in the Great Gatsby way. Flapper outfits are so different than this. They were meant to be danced in. So we have first out Jules Sparkle. And so I look at this and I see so much danceability in this. I see a lot of Betsey represented because of all these discordant shapes. And this felty, muppety material is hard to manipulate into clean shapes. That you get that shit everywhere. And we saw that in the workroom. And I really like this patchwork coat that she made. I think it's very cute. It's super fashionable. I like the way that it cascades. I like the way that she used a crushed velvet. The hardware is really incredible that she had time to do that. That's a lot of work for maybe like a 10-hour production day, maybe. It looks a lot like something that would have come out of Betsey's brain because the colors are all over the place. It is a little tacky looking. It doesn't have the silhouette that I typically think of with Betsey, but this collection wasn't really meant to showcase that. Jules is my number one. Next we had Lydia Butthole Collins. This seemed very up her alley because Lydia has been playing with a lot of different textiles through the season and is pretty tacky with her drag. Lydia's problem is that a lot of her garments swallow her up, and this was no exception. I was not a fan of the floral print that she used because on the runway far away, it kind of looked like peeling flesh, and that was gross to me. Because it wasn't supposed to look like that, but that's what it looked like. It looked like when you get a really bad sunburn and it's just, your skin is just coming off, you know, in these big circular chunks and you've got red all underneath it. It looked kind of gross to me. If you've ever had a sim that got the Tony the Tiger sickness, it looked like that. I do like the elements of the flapper at the bottom of the garment. I think that looks quite nice. The enclosure on the side is not really my favorite thing in the whole world, and I don't think that this particular animal print felt was the one that belonged with this bubblegum pink. I think it probably needed to be a little more of an intense color to create the effect that she wanted, and then this bodysuit underneath just needed to get scrapped, and maybe it could have worked, but the problem is just that it's swallowing her up. This was in the number 8 slot for me. And last from this collection we have Susie Toot. This was again very much something that was on her alley. I think the interpretation of going more punk grunge than flapper was probably a good choice for Susie. When I think Susie Toot, I think this era, I think obviously Betty Boop. And so I was kind of hoping that she would have leaned maybe a little more into the Betty Boopness of it all, but she leaned more in on the punk grunge element. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's an interesting way to interpret this. This would have been maybe the 3rd or the 4th look. It's a transition piece between the punk first 3 looks and then the grunge looks, and still incorporating a little bit of flapper. And there is something smart about that. When you've got 3 buzzwords for your runway category, the first 2 are probably the most important, and the last one's the filter you're dripping it through. So punk grunge as seen by a flapper. And I do think this accomplishes that. And for me, this was in the number 4 slot. Next up, we have Betsey's Prom. So if you look up Betsey Johnson Prom on Google, you're gonna get huge silhouettes, just massive silhouettes. They gave them a lot of pinks, which is not necessarily prom to me. And while Betsey Johnson is known for doing bold patterns and bold colors and prints, I don't know if I've ever seen her rely so heavily on pink. I think Lana's pink is the most Betsey Johnson-esque to me, but let's get into it. And again, with all of these being judged so differently, Prom is such a massive tonal shift from punk grunge flapper. There's only one buzzword here. That's prom. You had a lot more to work with punk grunge flapper. When it's prom, your lens is zeroed in to big shapes, cupcake dresses. You're not really looking for things that are hitting the floor. You're looking for a very specific silhouette. You're looking for a very specific shape. Something that is kind of slutty, that you can dance in, that you're gonna look cute at, that you're gonna look like a little princess, being able to not only dance to waterfalls, but maybe even man-eater, you know? What? I don't know what they play at proms anymore. First out, we have Corey King, and this was a queen that I thought she's gonna hit it. Her silhouette is always that tight bodice, big skirt, hoochie dress. And she came out in this Scoochie number that looks horrible. The design was bad to start out with. The asymmetry of it I don't think was that interesting. The bow is floppy. There's some tulle that's here on the side that looks messy. The hemming is horrible. The hair I think is also kind of a problem because it's supposed to be scooped up on this side and then have this cute little puff at the front and then in the back too, so it's almost like mullety almost, but it doesn't look clean. Something looks like this hair got messed up in transportation or it got messed up in application. I don't like that you can see the seam of the breastplate. I think the most interesting part of this is the corsage. I don't think anybody would go to prom looking like this. Number 9. Next we have Anya Nerve, and again, this is not very prom-y to me either. I do like the idea of the bows. I like the idea that there's 3 bows planted right down the middle. There was a critique, I think it was by Carson, that the bows were odd shapes, and yes, they were completely odd shapes, and there was every opportunity in the world to make sure that those bows looked similar to each other, and they didn't, or at least make them descending, that they get maybe bigger or smaller as the dress goes down. The top bow is obviously the biggest problem because it's just falling apart. The application of that tulle at the bottom where it almost looks like a loofah is a clear demonstration that Anya doesn't know how to work with tulle. The bow is a clear demonstration that she doesn't know how to work with tulle, because it can look dance moms really quickly and it can look tacky really quickly. Tulle seems like an easy fabric to work with, but it is pretty difficult in my experience. I don't think that this is a danceable garment, and when I think prom, you're not standing around in a corner unless you're the person that didn't go with anybody. You're gonna be grooving a little bit, even if you're just swishing your arms. And this is not a danceable garment. This isn't prom to me. This isn't any focal point of any runway category. It just looks cumbersome. I do think that she looks happy. She looks cute, as always. I'm just not a fan. It was number 7 for me. And then last in the prom category is Lana Jure, who I think actually looks the most prom-like to me. And this was the high mark of this category. The color is nice. It's very sweet. It doesn't look too loud or bombastic. It's tailored well. The silhouette is nice and clean. I really like the tulle in the back. I love the hair. That is the most prom-like hair and makeup to me. She looks very nice compared to her other design challenges, and so I am happy that she got to have a moment here. This was number 6. And now we have our final runway category, which is prenup. So it's bridal. This was one of the more successful categories, in my opinion, for the bulk of the contestants. So here's the thing. Bridal is big. It is voluminous. It's meant to make a statement. You are meant to eye-catch the entire room as soon as you walk in. That's the idea of bridal. You are the only one that is in that room. But bridal doesn't necessarily have to be walking down the aisle getting ready to get married. Bridal, in my opinion, could also be the after party or the reception. So it could be something that's still a statement piece that's meant to be like a meet and greet, walking around vibing with your friends, maybe even the bottom half is less bulky and cumbersome, but you're still trying to make a statement. It could even be some alternative couples will do things where they just don't even do the whole pomp and circumstance ceremony. They just do the thing and get married at a courthouse and then do a big party later in a cute dress, right? So bridal to me is pretty open, but again, very, very different judging parameters from the other ones. What I am looking for specifically is, are you making a statement? And does that statement look like it came from Betsey's head? We start out with Ariete. To me, the shape was more evening wear than bridal. I do like the mix of textiles. I think they're quite nice with the way, I think this might be organza, not tulle. I like the use of this lace. I love the incorporation of quasi menswear, using the bow tie, using what looks like arm cuffs on the sleeves. I like that element. And I like incorporating masculinity / menswear into gowns and into something flirty like bridal. To me, I don't know if this makes a statement. I don't know if this is I am the only diva in the room energy. I would see this on a red carpet and I could see this being editorial, photographing really well, but I don't see this being even like a gothic alternative wedding. The shape and silhouette, I think, would be crisper, maybe with something different happening in the skirt. I think the mermaid is maybe a little too contrived for doing something that is high fashion. I do like the effect of the shape in the middle and at the ankles. I think that is nice. Maybe it's just the colors I'm having a problem with. Like if we were to take this and put it into white and use the white elements as black, like imagine just a crisp black bow tie. And then on the cuffs, do a big black button. Maybe that would have looked a little more bridal to me and it would have taken it out of nighttime for me. And I think just overall it's a little dense, and that is what I'm not responding to as far as bridal is concerned. It's very well made, very well constructed. It's at number 5 for me, but it's not necessarily the category para mí. Next up, we have Sam's star. In what my immediate notes was like a virgin, and then I believe the judges said it too. I try not to listen to what the judges are saying when I'm writing notes down because I don't want to be influenced by them, but I'm glad that they also saw the Madonna vibe. This, to me, was at the most Betsey Johnson-like look of the entire night. I think that Jules translated the look through her drag the best, where Sam looked like it came directly out of the collection. There's something kind of punk rock about it, which is very Betsey Johnson. I love the color blocking of the black and the white, and the lines are crisp and clean. I love the incorporation of the letters right at the waist. Betsey uses words a lot in her costumes and in her designing, and I think that's fun. I love the asymmetry of this, that the bra on one side is white, and then when it drops down, your eyes scale down, there's white on the opposite side, that there's black here and there's black down there. I love that the gloves are alternating colors. I think the veil is fun. This looks like it came right out of that collection. And the silhouette is exactly what I think of with Betsey. Fitted up here, flouncy at the bottom. And the styling is so good. I mean, look at the bow too. The bow is also in opposing colors. I think they didn't want to put Sam in the top because they just did not want to make it seem too obvious that she's going to the end, even though I think all of us already know that. But I mean, in my opinion, she deserved clear top 3. This should have been given critiques because it's so good. And so Sam was at number 2. Finally, we have Lexi from this collection, who, in my opinion, also translated the idea of this collection the best through her drag. I love that what she did was create this sleek fitted bodysuit underneath, creating the effect of the very sleek bodices that Betsey is very well known for, and then doing volume all the way around with this sheer fabric that is just voluminous all the way around. It captures the essence of Betsey, filters it through Lexi, and is beautiful in its execution. I love the big bow. That is such a fun detail. It brings it to whimsy, which is what I think of when I think of Betsey. My only problem, and maybe this is just me being nitpicky, I don't love the rainbow wig. Styling can make or break a look, and I think if this was just in a nice blonde with maybe an ombre pink, like a dip dyed pink, this would have looked really cute. I think the sleekness of the hair was needed, but I just don't like the rainbow look of it all. It's not so silly, and it's more like and this could have won maybe if the styling was just a little bit different. They didn't critique her on the hair, but I am. I just really love the cascade of this veil. I think it is so fresh and new. And I mean, this is not completely new. I've definitely seen looks like this before, but Lexi interpreted it in an interesting and unique way. Lexi was at number 3 for me. And Betsey got to walk the runway with all the queens at the end, which made me so happy. I'm glad that she got to be such a big feature of this. She seemed so happy to be there, even dancing with the girls in Untucked. Susie, Lana, and Sam made sense being safe to me. Sam can't get another win right now when Lana is not on their vision board to go to the finale, I think. Jules is the winner of the challenge, and I was so grateful that she got a win. I think she should have won last week. In a more fair world, Jules would have won the Rusical and Sam would have won tonight, and then they wouldn't need to do a consolation win. To me, this was very much like when Lanesha knocked out that very first challenge and didn't get the win. They gave it to Roxy because they had to set her up for storyline purposes. And so they gave Lanesha a random win the following week in that lip sync episode, even though it should have gone to Coco. But they needed to give Lanesha some type of consolation prize. That's what this week felt like. Yes, Jules did great and I'm so happy for her, but she should have won last time. and didn't, so they had to reward her this week. And Drag Race does this so often where someone rightfully deserves a challenge win and they don't get it, so they give it to them the following week. It happens almost every season. Our bottom two is Corey and Lydia, just as I predicted, and they have to lip sync to a song called Kiss Me Deadly by Lita Ford. And I have never heard of this diva. I don't know who this is, but I did like the song. The incorporation of flapper moves by Lydia was probably the most brilliant part of the lip sync, that she understood what she was wearing and translated that from her drag to the performance. That was smart to me. The tonguing I was so whatever about. I know the internet is just absolutely so excited about it, but I just didn't care either way. Lydia is in, and I'm not surprised by that at all. This could have gone either way. I think they were both good in their own right. The edits seemed to focus more on Lydia because she did make it through. If they wanted to utilize Corey for anything else, they could have kept her, but Corey has not connected with Rue in a way that Rue likes. Corey has connected with Rue in a way that Rue likes to sort of make fun of her and dig at her for what she's wearing and what she does, where Rue just seems to genuinely love Lydia in an Ivy Winters sort of way. Not that she's doing so good, but she just likes saying her name. And so I'm not surprised that Lydia is still making it through another episode. And I think overall, Corey has run out of storyline on Drag Race. She is not giving enough to be retained. But I am gonna miss her confessionals. I'm gonna miss her presence because she's just so funny to listen to. And next week is a villains roast, opposite of the nice girls roast that we had in season 13. And can I tell you, I laughed so hard that we have got Plain Jane as a guest, and Corey got eliminated the week before her sister is on Drag Race. Oh, it's so funny. And I think I saw Candy and Mistress there. I kind of wish that it was Mistress, Plain, and maybe like Detox. I want to see someone from the old school. I mean, give me Coco Montrese. Let's see someone from back in the day. Bring back one of the old divas, Morgan. Holy smokes, they could have brought in Morgan. Morgan could have been there with Plain and Mistress, and that would have been such a trifecta of chaos. I have no problem with Candy Muse being there. It's good branding with her being on House of Villains and then showing up here. And those probably would have been filmed around the same times. So like, I'm here for it, but also I would have loved the diva from all the way back then. I am feeling good about a lot of the contestants that I favor. I feel like Jules is gonna be okay. I feel like Anya is gonna devastate this. I just get the feeling that she's gonna be very good at being able to do this. I am worried that it's curtains for Arietti. This is my prediction right now. I think that Lydia is not gonna do great, but she's gonna get a pass for one more week. And I'm feeling like probably like Lana and Arietti are gonna struggle. Arietti, just because she was so bad at the reading challenge, I don't think that she's able to connect sharpness, bitiness that comes off as anything else other than maybe being a little bitter. And I think that Lana doesn't really have a lot of comedy chops. And so I feel like the two of them will be on the bottom and Lydia will be a safe low, because Lydia sort of seems to be at the bottom of the barrel as far as everybody else is concerned. Everyone else's drag is so focused and polished and tailored, and they have such a strong point of view with who they are as performers, where Lydia seems the one who's sort of the least stamped. And so I worry that her trajectory is out soon, but Rue likes her, so I think Rue will try to protect her at all costs, even if she does bad. And so that's what I'm predicting now. But what did you think about this episode? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see y'all on the flip.